this is Arunava Chaudhuri and you are on my YouTube channel, Arunfoot. A question which I've been thinking about, a question that I've been pondering about is, could Indian football, could the All India Football Federation be facing another FIFA ban following the one that India faced in 2022? And why am I pondering about this thought, about this question? Simply because the Supreme Court of India has finally come out with its judgment on a new constitution for the All India Football Federation. And as per the person put in charge by the court, former Justice Nageshwar Rao, he had interacted, spoken with FIFA, but it seems like that certain key points that FIFA told him about, that FIFA informed the former justice about, they seem to not have been incorporated into the constitution, because as per the interpretation of the laws by the Supreme Court, there's one understanding which I've said again and again in regard to global sports, and that is something which is very, very important when we talk about sports governance, is that the law of the land is below of the law of sports. So law of sports stands above the law of the land. It doesn't matter if we're talking about the United States, if we're talking about Europe, if we're talking about China, if we're talking about Russia, if we're talking about North Korea, India, countries in Africa, wherever you are in the world. 211 countries and territories in the world are part of FIFA, and they all sign up to that understanding that there are certain laws by which you follow the statutes of the sport, and your local laws have to adhere to those statutes. Therefore, we've been having that problem also with the Indian Olympic Association and the International Olympic Committee, that the IOC and the IOA have been fighting over certain things that should be in place in the IOA, which were not. Now, what are these key problem on that should have been raised by retired Justice Rao? One of the points that has been mentioned is that no amendment made in the future by the AIFF shall be valid without the leave or permission of the Supreme Court. Just this sentence being part of the new AIFF constitution actually implies that this is third-party interference, third-party influence. And the other thing is, which again is something which is which should be discussed and looked at, is the fact that the All India Football Federation Executive Committee needs to be made up of bodies. Bodies means either the state associations or the professional clubs. Now, what has been done here on that front is that a certain quota has been kept for former players. And if there is one lesson that we should take from the last 3 years of the running of the All India Football Federation and people around the federation, is that being a former player, being a former footballer, cannot be a qualification of being a senior executive or even the president of the federation. Simple. But how will that be taken care of? Now we have a representation quota system in which you're saying, listen, the ISL will get a slot, the I-League will get a slot, the IWL will get a slot, players, individuals. Why can't the Players Association be the representative on that executive committee rather than giving the slots to individual players? And that to me is something which hasn't been discussed at all. And there are other things which can be discussed, because the AIFF retaining ownership of the league and rights is something which isn't there in other parts of the world. The Premier League is not owned and run by the FA. The Bundesliga is run by a separate entity called DFL rather than the DFB. The Royal Spanish Football Federation does not run La Liga, but it is run by a separate La Liga entity. And also mentioning that the principle of promotion and relegation needs to be upheld in the constitution. That's something that, interesting, FIFA most probably will be okay with. But even in Europe, not everywhere promotion is automatically granted in a league. We have that situation in Germany where there is a general fight on that in regard to the third and fourth tier, that 4 teams get relegated from the third tier, but the fourth tier doesn't have 4 regional leagues, but has 5. And 4 out of the 5 are getting promoted, which means that automatic promotion is also not part of the German ecosystem. So therefore, there are multiple questions that simply arise out of the constitution, and those need to be answered by the AIFF via the Supreme Court. Now the question is, can the AIFF now go back to the Supreme Court and say, you know what, you've given us your final judgment, but these and these points have been raised by FIFA. Will you look into that? Will you change the wording? Or does it stay the way it is? And we potentially get closer to a potential FIFA ban. What do you guys think? Do you agree with me, disagree with me? You've got something else to say? Write down your points below. And as always, like, share and subscribe Arunfoot here on YouTube. Visit my other social medias. Visit arunfoot.com. And I'll be back very soon. So Arunava Chaudhuri signing off. Bye for now.